Welcome to JSA TV, where we're covering the latest news, trends, and innovations from thought leaders from within the digital infrastructure space. I am Dean Perrine, and we are coming at you live. That's right, we are coming at you live from PTC 2026 in beautiful Honolulu, Hawaii. And this good-looking guy to my right probably needs no introduction, but I'll give you one anyway. This is Jeff Ferry. Jeff is the partner and head of digital infrastructure at Safanad. Jeff, welcome as always to JSA TV.
Great to be here. Great to be with you. Great to be at PTC as always. Right, it's hard to beat it.
Yeah, right. And
great way to start off the year.
Show's going well for you.
Fantastic. It's a lot of good meetings. As I just talked to you, I have a set schedule, and then I have like probably 30 10-minute meetings in which I bump into this person and that person. So it's a great place. I mean, as you can see, it's been very active. Right. I think their attendance is up like
35% is what I heard last.
And that's just the registered attendance. There's a lot of other people hanging around the edges and fringes. So very active, very, like fantastic conversations, right? I mean, it's just a great place to start off the year. I touch all the folks that, we need to talk to and find out all the opportunities as I'm, kind of investigating a lot of new opportunities in the new role I have with Safanad. Right?
Jeff, thanks for that segue, man.
With you, man. I found this.
I appreciate that very much. So, Jeff, you are in fact in a new role. But before we get into that, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about your past experience, where you're coming from, and then we'll jump right into that new role.
Yeah, it's great. So for a long time I was at Goldman Sachs in their specialty lending group. I focused on almost the entire time I was there, probably since 2004, in the TMT space, but specifically in digital and in data centers, right? And so we were lending to and investing in data centers before it was cool. Way before it was cool. And so in a lot of things in the U.S. that we expanded. Beyond the U.S. and the borders, we were, in Canada, we were in Australia, we had a lot of Europe, we had a platform in Moscow. Prior to leaving, I invested in, LEA data centers, in which we've talked about before, right? In Brazil, I've been on here before talking about Rio AI City, all the good things.
One of my favorite projects. Every time
those things led me to, my background is always in investing with, with Goldman. I left Goldman 3 years ago, but then I continued in the industry, still working with ALEA, working on other projects with other teams around the world. And so domestically, a lot of land and power, stuff that's going on in the U.S. Internationally, working with, kind of groups on, similar land and power, but working with partners, developers, the end users, right, NVIDIA's, the hyperscalers of the world, on trying to, what NVIDIA talks about, activate more, GPUs, right? And so that's projects that we're looking at, and then now that I'm in my seat with Safanad, I work closely with the Element Critical team in the U.S., in which we have really good assets in Houston and Austin, great management team with the ability to scale. Right now, we have we are actively looking for, a lot of new assets, right? And so new opportunities in the enterprise collocation space that can grow into, the neoclouds and local, kind of cloud, regions that we expect to happen, right? Which I think we all expect inference to be the next wave, where it's like, 10, 20 megawatts in a region. It's got to be more, kind of latency sensitive. So we want to kind of position the platform. And so we have that in Houston and Austin. We're going to find other assets in other parts of the, in say the Atlantas and Chicago's and kind of primary and secondary markets to be able to kind of activate more GPUs, right? And build our business, right? So I spend a lot of time with that team. You're going to have Ken on next, probably talk more about EC. And then we can talk about the industry, right? And then I'm looking at, for Safanad, we're going to be looking at international opportunities, right? Safanad is KSA, Saudi Arabia based. We have offices in Riyadh, we have offices in Dubai and New York. And, we're going to start looking for things that fit, a certain schematic. And so, certainly KSA, the Middle East region is going to be a target. I've been looking at projects, kind of all around the world. And so we'll tee those up as possible opportunities to kind of work with really good developers in those countries, really good operators, and then, the end user or off taker, right? the three important parts of like when you're trying to do investing, especially in a foreign market, right? You got to find really good partners, really good opportunities, and you got to have the right customer base. So
I love it, Jeff. And honestly, Safanad probably was just like, "That's our guy. Let's go get this guy." So congratulations to you. Yeah,
It was a fun process to get to meet them, to know them. They have a deep background in kind of real estate, education. They've had the investment in Element Critical, but I'm here to kind of help that team, kind of build it. We have a great infrastructure in place. We have great assets. We need to build, in those markets. I think we're going to look for more opportunities in Austin, in Houston. And then we're going to find the new markets I just talked about, so we can give that team more ammunition to play with, right? And then we're going to find similar teams, internationally, and deploy capital for our investor base as we have it in, right? So I think it was announced in the fall. We have a great investor base in Element Critical now, 26 North, Arctos, and Mercuria, which is a very interesting team that I'm excited to kind of, I've met the guy, I met the team.
A huge announcement just at the end of last year.
I'm excited to work with them to not only build this platform, but talk about other opportunities that are going to be, that will surface very quickly.
Well, let's talk about opportunities then. From an investment standpoint, based on, on your experience, where do you think things are going over the next year, maybe 18, 24 months down the road?
Yeah, so you see a lot of, like in the U.S., right? I mean, what's interesting, people never knew what data centers were, right? And now if you pick up the local paper, watch the local news, they're talking about data centers, talking about power.
And a lot of times incorrectly.
Well, incorrectly, but they're talking about how it impacts prices, right?
Yeah.
And so I think a little bit of the industry is going to be education of what's really going on the grid, behind the grid, et cetera. That's more PR stuff, right? But from an investing standpoint, there are still opportunities in the U.S. to kind of expand, reposition assets and make sure we can still grow, right? So my focus is I want to see markets that we can buy, maybe existing assets with enterprise customers, sell leasebacks, situations that we can get involved in. But we want those situations to be where we can grow that platform, right? So we have land or adjacent land, or we have other opportunities to grow power. Power is the number one question today, right? How much, how soon, how can I access, and what does it cost, right? And so, as I talked about with, like Rio AI City, right? That's like a home run for Aaliyah, where I'm on the board, because they found all those things, right? Great city, great connectivity, plenty of land, plenty of power, the right partners, and so that project is, exciting. But there's going to be other projects like that all around the world, right? I've found, and I've worked on projects. Paraguay is interesting, right? We don't have a customer base that wants to go there, but very cheap power, tons of power, right? And so I think you're going to find these pockets of available power, and in stable environments, stable economies where, but ultimately it doesn't really matter if I find that. The customer base has to be wanting to go there, right?
For sure.
I can find cheap power and stuff, but if they don't want to go in, certain areas, then I can't force that issue, right? I have to be reactive and I want to be proactive, but in most cases you have to be reactive to what they want, where they want to be, right?
100%.
But you have to be, you have to have it teed up.
You have to be ready to go.
And so
the plenty of power is the issue. Yeah.
So that's the goal, right? We want to position the EC platform in the U.S. to be reactive to the customer requests and the customer need, to be able to grow more in Houston, grow more in Austin, grow more in other markets, and acquire new customers that want that same capability in Chicago, in Atlanta, in Minneapolis, in wherever, right? I don't have a pin board of saying I need to be there, and there.
Yeah.
I need to be where my customer wants to be, or where I think there's plenty of capacity and capabilities. And so we, the team, Steve, Ken, Shane, the sales team, we take our direction from the customer base, right? We don't just say, hey, here's my list, right? And because they're going to say, yeah, I'm not interested, right? So they spend a great deal of time with the team, with the customer base, and it's a collaborative sales process, right? That same thing's happening around the world, right? I can't force people to go in Paraguay, or I can't force people to go in Brazil, or I can't force people to go like other projects, Vietnam, Malaysia.
But if that
India,
critical mass of customers are there,
it will be, right?
Yeah.
I've worked on projects, and the things I'm going to be working on at Safanad, right, internationally, will be things I've been working on, throughout this time, where I've built relationships where we know the players, right? You have to, and once I talked about it before, right? You have to have a local player and a very credible, trustworthy, dependable like local player, like we have in Aaliyah with Alessandro and his team, right? Sure. Fantastic management team, great people. And that's why that's going to be successful, right? We have to replicate that thing. I want to replicate that in 3 or 4 other markets internationally, start a platform, find good local partners, find good off-takers, and build a platform.
So let's talk about that customer. I know we're going to just go off script here, but
I always go off script.
It's been a while.
We've done this 2 or 3 times. Yeah. I'm on script for like 2 minutes.
No, same. And that's what I like about this. But you mentioned the enterprise a few times during this conversation, and not a lot of folks are sitting here and saying, hey, let's not forget about the enterprise. But you are.
It's fantastic, right? And so, listen, there is a reason why some of the platforms, in the U.S., very successful platforms, they have been focused on and chasing what I would call the hyperscale or single tenant.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Build the suit, single tenant. It's a very efficient process, right? And there are benefits to that, right? But I think our focus is, listen, there is a they're not forgotten, but there's a gap in the activity and the ability to service that enterprise client, because the enterprise client still has their needs. We expect that over time, and we have some customers that need will be AI focused, right? So it's not like every AI, and GPU is going to be going into a Microsoft or Amazon or Google or neocloud facility and then being used, right? And so over time, those big corporate users, right? Big energy users, big governments, big thing, they're going to then be able to acquire GPUs and acquire high-end compute, right? Or they're going to need storage, and they're going to need something to be able to compute,
or just someone to say, this is how it works.
Right. And so those companies will still want to maintain control over, banks want to maintain control over their assets, right? Governments want to maintain. Now, they don't want to own data centers. Like before, banks would own data centers, government. Like I think it's transitioned to where they don't want to necessarily own the real estate or own the digital infrastructure, but they want control over their assets, right? And so that's what the team is focused on. We have very good clients. We're developing new clients. And those clients are going to help grow the business and help, and the customer base that is like AI focused and some of the software companies, they actually want that collection of, customers, right? So we're going to be able to kind of like position that and then say, listen, cloud, like look at the customer base I have in Chicago or I have it now in Houston and Austin. They're going to be closer to that, right? So maybe we set up network nodes for some of the cloud guys, or maybe we set up smaller deployments for some of the AI guys so they can be close to the action.
Yeah.
Right. So, that's like we like that customer base, right? That customer base has been, has been not been ignored, but the focus and the capital has been like chasing the big deals.
That's right.
I understand that. And I participated into it. Sure. And it's not a bad business. But I think the co-location, the data center, the digital infrastructure business has many prongs, right? And and each of them have benefits. And I think we want to pursue those benefits. We want to invest in it, and we want to be able to deliver that, kind of to our customer base and grow that customer base.
Jeff, it is always a pleasure to see you, man.
Fun. It's always good to be here. You guys do a great job, great team, and so look forward to probably our next conversation someplace soon.
I do too, Jeff. Thanks so much, and congratulations to you. Yeah.
Thanks.
And thank you, viewers, for watching JSA TV. We'll see you real soon.
Thanks.